Hello, my dudes. Welcome back to Internet Analysis. Today, I want to talk about this genre of content, which is one of the easiest ways to get views: dunking on Americans. There's a whole cottage industry of Americans are dumb and bad content.
This is the weirdest thing about the US.
Most people don't have passports, just have green cards.
And people never go out of the country, they always just stay in the US.
Americans really believing that they are the center of the universe.
The amount of Americans I've met who do not consume politics, media, literature, gossip about non-American things is astounding.
All Americans think of themselves as being the world leading most developed.
Are Americans aware that the way you look at Florida and the Florida man is the same way that the rest of the world looks at Americans?
Much of this pits Americans against Europeans specifically because Europe is superior to the US in every single way, obviously.
Do you think Europeans know more about America than Americans about Europe?
Yes.
For sure.
Yes. Yeah, I would say Europeans know more about the US than Americans know about us.
The Americans are more stupid than Europeans.
Europeans knows more about America.
By the way, man on the street content is just such low-hanging fruit. It is so easy to film all day, then take things out of context or cherry pick the worst possible responses.
We are going to destroy the myth that Americans do not know geography. Capital of America is? Obviously you know the capital of USA.
The capital of the United States?
Right.
Well, I'm not gonna say Capitol Hill.
It's not Capitol Hill.
I have no clue. What is it?
We are a big country with a lot of people, so you've got like 300 million opportunities to roast us. Interestingly, many of the creators making this kind of content are American themselves, but they're the good ones, joining in to make fun of the less cultured people in the US. Some popular things to dunk on Americans about include we don't have manners, we don't know geography, we aren't well traveled.
Someone from the United States ordering something, they don't say please! With no pleases throughout, the thank you would just seem passive-aggressive.
All Americans do is they say they're going to Europe, as if it's just one place, with just one lived experience across the whole of Europe.
The majority of people that live there, that were born there, haven't travelled out of the country.
But there's a back and forth, okay? Occasionally we punch back, like British food is bad.
English food is absolute dog shit, and you cannot convince me otherwise.
Non-Brits will never understand how good this is. You are absolutely right. I don't understand, and I don't think I want to understand it.
It is so visibly displeasing, I almost couldn't fucking eat it.
Yeah, no, we don't eat beans on toast because that's disgusting.
However, as the wife of an Englishman, I do have to say, beans on toast slaps, okay? If you haven't had it, you don't know. I pay a stupid amount of money to buy the Heinz beans in the international section of our supermarket. Anyway, these arguments often devolve into extremely niche and silly issues. Did you know Americans don't have kettles and they don't know how to make a proper cup of tea? Well, I heard Brits don't rinse the soap off their dishes. Or you'll see people arguing about legitimate cultural differences and then getting upset that someone in another country does things differently than them. As many commenters wrote on my last video, how friendly or chatty people are in shops, for example, can vary widely. What are the local customs or definitions of politeness? Please, may I have the fish and chips? Or I'll have the bacon, egg, and cheese. Thanks. In the world of content, these largely superficial cultural fights are fantastic engagement bait. Nothing gets people more heated than personal attacks against their own country. And vice versa, it can be very satisfying to pile on to people that you have beef with. What's even more frustrating is often a lot of these issues aren't even true. They're based on stereotypes, or maybe someone had a bad experience with one person who is now the official representative of their entire nationality. It's messy, but we seem to love the drama. But the reason I wanted to make this video is because recently, at least on my own For You page, the tides have turned. There's backlash to the backlash. I have finally seen way more Americans actually fighting back against these notions, and I guess I'm kind of making this video in defense of Americans, which is rare. Does that mean I'm feeling patriotic? Absolutely not. I started writing this a few months ago, but obviously in light of our recent election, the result of which is only reinforcing the idea that many people in the international community have that Americans are dumb and backwards. I know this entire video now has a lot more context that I don't want to get into too much, but it's kind of inevitable. Does America have massive problems? Yes. But so does every country, and I guess a lot of my point in this video is no country is monolithic. As always, I am hoping for some nuance, so let's just not overgeneralize millions of people whether they're from the US or anywhere else in the world, okay? But before we continue, this portion of today's video is sponsored by Parade. Of course, this time of year, we're all thinking about gifts, and I personally love giving practical gifts that I know are going to be used. For example, nice new underwear. It's the kind of thing we often don't want to buy for ourselves until we have to, so I think it's a really nice gift to receive. But a practical gift doesn't have to be boring. It can be useful and fun, sexy, cute. Whether you're into neutrals or funky prints, new bras and underwear can be a huge confidence boost. So Parade's Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale is the perfect time to stock up for yourself or your loved ones. And lucky for you, Parade recently restocked their best-selling fabric, Replay. So today I wanted to show you guys this matching set I have in Balloon, which is their bold, classic red color. These are Replay briefs and the Replay triangle bralette, which is my all-time favorite Parade piece. I mention these in like every video because they really are the best. For my body, they are perfectly supportive, exactly what I want on a daily basis. They are really soft and comfortable. I genuinely wear one of these bralettes almost every day, and it makes me never want to touch an underwire ever again. I know there are a ton of sales going on right now, but I do think buying basics like these are a safe bet. You're always gonna need underwear, unless you don't wear it, in which case, rock on. Parade also has apparel like loungewear and sleepwear. I have a few pairs of their pajama pants and quite a few of their basic t-shirts in a few colors. They are my go-tos. And pro tip, I always tell my friends to check out the final sale section. You never know what you're gonna find in there, and you can luck out with some really great clearance prices. So again, if you're brainstorming gift ideas, I highly recommend sending a Parade gift card or picking out a bag of goodies, like this present I put together for a friend. Right now, the Black Friday Cyber Monday sale is 30% off, but you can get 50% off site-wide with my code
FERG-BF.
So first I want to start with Pick Me Americans.
My hot take is there's absolutely nothing more annoying than a Pick Me American. I'm not like other Americans. I hate Americans, even though I'm an American myself. Like, why are you so desperate for this external validation from people from other countries? Like, why does it matter so much?
The Pick Me American is often traveling extensively, living abroad, or just dreams of doing so. They have this romanticized vision of Europe and see it with rose-colored glasses. They tend to imagine this glamorous life in the big city, very Emily in Paris. Everywhere across Europe must have a better quality of life. You've got the slower pace, the relaxing lunches, sitting outside cafes, long walks on cobblestone streets, all the beautiful history, culture, and, you know, socialized healthcare, trains. There's definitely a lot to envy in Europe from the eyes of many Americans. So you're criticizing the US very heavily and praising Europe for all these wonderful things, which sure, but they often don't acknowledge that European countries do, of course, have their own fair share of political issues, xenophobia, racism, inequality, poverty. But why acknowledge that? Because the US is worse, no matter what. Now, okay, is everyone who makes content about living abroad, being an immigrant, or an expat, are they all pick-me Americans? No. And of course it is fine to like or even prefer other countries. But there is a very specific pick-me posturing that is common in a lot of these living abroad accounts, and they certainly do cater to a European audience.
Especially the ones that make their entire TikTok account about being an American living abroad. They seem to develop that European superiority complex. All of a sudden they're starting to speak about Americans like they're like, yeah, Americans are kind of dumb. And what they don't realize is that by stroking the European ego, you're just reinforcing the stereotypes that they view you having. Like, just because you're there and they won't tell you that that's how they perceive you does not mean that they don't perceive you like that. You're not picked. You're always gonna be an American. Like, that's the thing.
Honestly, Pick Me American content is very popular and pretty easy to make. I would know. I've done it. In late 2016, I made a video called 10 Reasons I'm Glad to Be Leaving America. Today, I've got a list of 10 reasons why I'm excited to leave America and go to Europe. I am gonna be studying abroad in the south of France for the whole spring semester, and I leave in just a few days. I've never been to Europe, but these are the things that I have heard about. I remember the time getting a bunch of comments from some Americans being like, oh, if you hate the country so much, then leave. And I was like, I literally am leaving. That's what this video is about. Anyway, this was the beginning of a little bit of Pick Me American content from me, which was not intentional, but at that point I was becoming more politically aware, so I was a bit more attuned than I had been in the past to, you know, the sort of criticism that the US is certainly worthy of, historically, politically, and I became a self-flagellating American. I would agree with anyone hating on us. Yes, we're the worst. Yes, we're backwards. I wanted to reject any ounce of patriotism. What is there to be proud of in this country? But I do actually believe that being critical of your country is actually one of the greatest ways to express your love for it. You care enough to want it to be better. So anyway, I was feeling very critical of the US, feeling very defeated and disillusioned, especially in the political landscape at that time. And I was entranced by my dreams of European vibes. So I rewatched this video for the first time in years, and what were my reasons? Number one reason, Trump, obviously. Okay, pain. Yeah, right off the bat, this one hurts. Here we are, 7 years later. As I mentioned, in light of Trump's re-election, there are some people in the world who I guess are laughing at us and saying that we deserve whatever harm will come out of this.
Honestly, you deserve him. You deserve him as your president, and he's gonna be a great lesson to you. Maybe not, because I feel like a lot of you don't have common sense or empathy. Also, I don't know if you guys are aware, America is the literal laughingstock of the world.
One thing Europeans won't do is pretend as though they don't understand. Step down from your pedestal, because your pedestal is fictional. Your country has either done it already or is in the midst of doing it. And how dare you talk about empathy?
Anyway, I know that got pretty heavy, but again, it's, you know, everything is political, always. And I should have known that talking about dunking on Americans would inevitably include the timely impacts of our election. Okay, continuing on. Americans don't know geography.
What is one thing that American education is lacking? Less of geography, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Get like a better perspective on like the rest of the world.
Oh, where are you from? I was like, the US. Oh, where are you from? And he was like, oh, I'm from Switzerland. So I was thinking, what part is he from? So I asked him, and he's like, oh, you know Switzerland? In Europe? Like, obviously I fucking do this, but I asked you, like, and I've been there. I was like,
these Americans do not know geography. I am visiting Europe. That is an entire continent, stupid. I'm sorry for that, but I studied abroad in France. I love the French language. I love the French accent. Consider it an homage. Let's talk about that whole visiting Europe thing. It's funny because it came up in that video. Years ago, I was saying this. For some reason, when people talk about Europe, people are like, you know, Europe's not a country, right? And it's like, yeah, but it's a continent, so people talk about it as one big group of countries. There is still this persistent beef that I guess some Europeans have about Americans saying that they're visiting Europe, but they specifically mean they're going to be visiting multiple countries across Europe, typically Western Europe. And if they genuinely believe that Americans don't know when they're planning this trip, they're booking a trip, they don't know they're visiting multiple countries, they really think they're going to the country of Europe? Come on, give us some grace. I know you think we're stupid. It is literally just more convenient and efficient to say, I'm visiting Europe, I'm going to Europe, than to say, I'm going to Portugal, Spain, France, Germany, Hungary, Croatia, Italy, Belgium, the Netherlands. It's actually the same as when people come to visit the US and they say, we're visiting the States.
When you guys are traveling, oftentimes they say, we're going to the States, we're going to the US, and they don't specify which of the 50 states they're going to. We have a lot of states that they could be seeing. How am I supposed to know where they're going?
If you're visiting multiple places, you might use an umbrella term. Come on. Now, when it comes to this issue of Americans being bad at geography, I'm gonna be the first to say, I think I'm bad at geography. I'll take one for the team. Often when Europeans question Americans about geography, we will respond with, okay, name the 50 states, to try to make the point that, like, this is a big country, we have a huge land mass, we have a lot of states, a lot of cities and capitals going on, right? But the funny thing is, I couldn't even do that off the top of my head, and I don't know if that should bring me to shame as a 29-year-old American woman. Apparently everyone else memorized that one song in school, but I must have missed the memo. Instead, my brain just goes, Alabama, Arkansas, I do love my mom, pa, which is not as helpful. But really, this got me thinking, like, what does it mean to know geography or to be good at geography? How do we measure that? Like, obviously there are geniuses who could point to every country on the map, name every capital, every flag, and I am so jealous. I desperately need that person on my trivia team. Anyway, I can relate to other Americans who are like, I don't really remember learning geography. I did take a geography class in 9th grade, but literally all I recall was us coloring maps. That was probably my least useful class in my entire education. So I took this random geography quiz online because that's how I measure my self-worth in the internet age. And I got a 64%, which was bad. It definitely embarrasses me for you to be able to see which questions I got wrong. Please don't roast me, come on. But as a formerly gifted straight A student, especially, a 64% is unacceptable. Yet at the same time, it's actually better than I expected. The thing is, when I think of my history and therefore geography education, the vast majority was about the United States or Western Europe. I took AP Euro, for example. Loved that class. And most of my classes were honors and AP classes. So like, I was at a pretty good school taking high-level classes, and even I don't know much. I'm sure there are plenty of my classmates who know more. But like, again, we know the US education system is very flawed. We know it's very underfunded. We know many, many schools are struggling literally even to keep kids literate these days. So yeah, when it comes to geography, unfortunately, I think the skill of memorizing and being able to point out places on a map, that's probably low on the priority list because unfortunately we're forced to focus on standardized testing. But yeah, education is a crisis in this country, and it is terrifying to think about what is going to happen again under this upcoming administration especially. It's depressing. It's horrible. But another question I have is like, are Americans really that bad? Like uniquely horrible out of the entire world? Or is the internet making it worse? Like, has the idea of Americans are bad at geography just cemented itself in everyone's brains and we all just accept that as fact? I would assume that most people are probably most knowledgeable about their own countries, history, culture, and then neighboring countries or places that have close political or historical ties. Like, that would make sense to me.
We didn't learn about it in school. Our education system sucks. I know, it's upsetting. You think I fucking took a class on hey, here's every country in the world? No! I know it because it's life, dude. That is the dissonance. That is the disconnect. The amount of Americans I met that did not know the capital of Canada, their neighboring country, is insane because they simply don't think about it. It's the world. How do you not know about the world?
And lastly, the idea of Americans being very focused on ourselves. Yeah, I mean, it is true that we are kind of indoctrinated to believe like we're the #1 country on earth. We're the best, we're the smartest, we're the most powerful. Yeah, America. And that's a problem, definitely. Like many Americans would greatly benefit from opening their eyes, widening their horizons, learning more, exploring more about many other places in the world. I won't argue with that. I won't. I'm always pro learning. That's great. It can only help, right? Until you learn too much.
Americans that are horrible at geography. Do you agree?
Oh, 100%.
Definitely.
Someone commented, wait, are we supposed to know where every city in every country is located? There's like high level geography stuff, and then there's like very specific things that, again, the average person, I don't think we can expect the average citizen to know every city in every country. Hot take. I don't know. There's definitely not enough room in my brain for that. Right now it's full of 4 seasons of Desperate Housewives plots because I've been binge watching it, staying up at night feeding my baby. And finally, that brings us to the next section. Americans don't travel. Americans are not well traveled.
Can someone explain to me why Americans don't travel?
Americans are so limited, so close-minded. They never want to travel. They'd never care to see anything outside of their own country. There are a couple factors at play here. First of all, many Americans do travel. Mic drop. Looking up some basic stats. It's actually kind of hard to find stats specifically about this. I don't think it's been studied that deeply. But from what I'm seeing, according to this survey, about a quarter of American adults have never left the US. About half of Americans have traveled to 1 to 4 other countries, and a quarter have traveled to at least 5 other countries. US globetrotters are more likely to be older, have higher incomes, and more education. That seems pretty predictable. Again, who has the means to travel, first of all? You've got to have the money and the free time, the ability to be able to go on these sorts of trips.
And why is it? It's not because Americans don't have money, because Americans have a ton of money.
I found that really interesting that he says it's not because Americans don't have money. Speak for yourself. Many Americans, in fact, do not have the money to spare to be able to go travel abroad extensively. Many people have shared example prices of like, how much does it cost to go from the US to a major city in Europe versus starting in a major city in Europe, visiting the US round trip. I looked up some examples like, okay, Paris to New York, averaging about $600. New York to Paris, averaging almost $1,000. There are some cheaper flights available, budget airlines, but most tickets are ranging around there. So it's almost double when you're coming from the US, and that's even coming from a major city like New York. It's definitely more expensive to come from a smaller town, or you have to travel further to the airport, or even have to take a flight to get to your local, regional, international airport to be able to get there. The biggest expense is getting to Europe to begin with, and then once you're there, it's a lot more affordable, relatively.
I just think that there's a fundamental disinterest among Americans in seeing the world. I think Americans maybe are scared. I don't really get it.
I think there's a fundamental disinterest in seeing the world. Again, disagree. disagree.
Like, I know it'd be easy to just accept and play into the stereotype that Americans think that their country is the greatest and they don't want to see anywhere else, but really that's just not the case.
I think some people, again, when they become extensive travelers, get this kind of superiority complex, and they're like, wow, I'm so worldly, I'm so interested in other cultures, I just love traveling and learning and meeting other people, it's so wonderful, and that's great. But again, when you get the superiority complex and you think that because other people haven't done it, or haven't done it as much as you, that they have no desire to do that. They don't care to meet new people, they don't care to see new places. No. Some people are totally fine staying at home, but there are many people who in fact would love to go travel. They would love to go have those experiences, and they can't afford it, or other life circumstances prevent them from doing that. There's also the issue of vacation time. To generalize, Europeans tend to get more time off. Like, a lot of people get like the entire month of August off. Unheard of. For Americans, many of us have very little or maybe no paid time off, no vacation time.
The average American gets 2 weeks off in a year. That's 10 days, 2 weeks. I know that's insane, and there are plenty of people who have jobs that offer more time off than that, but that's kind of the standard if you were to ask the average person how much time off they get.
So yeah, every trip that you're planning, you have to consider the logistics of how long is it even going to take to get there? If you're going to spend a few days traveling, going to the airport, flying, waiting, that feels like it's eating into your precious time off, whereas you can travel a shorter distance, drive over to the neighboring state, go to the beach, go to the lake. That's what a lot of people in the US tend to do because we have less time off. Maybe you can do a long weekend trip that's a lot more feasible than taking 2 weeks to go travel to Australia or New Zealand. You're gonna get there and barely have any time to acclimate to the time zone, and then you're gonna be flying right back, jet lagged. Okay, so another major factor in Americans not being well traveled, allegedly, like I just said, the cost. Number 2, what are we considering the meaning of being well-traveled?
Whenever we're talking about the term well-traveled, they always change the definition to fit whatever perspective and narrative that they're coming from. Because I could have gone to all 50 states in the US and they would say I'm not well-traveled because I haven't been outside of the country. And with states in the US being comparable or larger to sizes of countries within Europe, it is easy to say that comparatively speaking, however many states an American has been to is comparable to how many countries someone in Europe has been to, because they're just neighboring countries the same way our states are neighboring.
And I do think that is a very valid argument within this country. There are numerous extremely different regions that have completely different weather, culture, geography.
I think a lot of people understand in theory that countries like the United States or Australia, China, or Russia are really big. But until you actually experience it yourself, it's hard to conceptualize just how big that is.
There have been a lot of examples going around of people being like,
So I used to work at Disney World. The number of European guests who would call and ask me if they could get to insert American landmark here and be back in time for a dinner reservation blew my mind. I specifically remember one guy calling asking if they could get to the Grand Canyon and be back in time for a 5 p.m. dinner reservation. I laughed because I thought he was joking.
I don't even know if those are true stories, or again, if that's like an internet like urban legend that we're just running with because it's convenient for our narrative. Haha, well, Europeans don't know American geography either. Maybe that's the point, is we are all just not giving each other grace. So again, the comparison that many people have made many times is that generally it is easier to travel even country to country within Western Europe than it is to travel across the United States.
In fact, I was able to get through 3 countries in Europe in 3 hours, where 3 hours on a train in the United States gets you halfway, maybe, through one state.
If my state, California, was a country on the continent of Europe, it would be the 6th biggest country.
So if you were to drive from where I grew up in Seattle to New York City, it would be 2,830 miles, or over 4,500 kilometers. So a drive of this same distance could get you all the way from Paris to the Middle East, specifically northern Iraq.
For example, after my semester in France, I ended up traveling for 3 weeks. I was mostly staying in hostels, just backpacking through Europe, as they say. And I think I went through like 13 countries. I did a few short, cheap budget flights, a couple of trains, but the vast majority of my travel was Flixbus. Shout out Flixbus. I was having a fun time, enjoying the infrastructure of Western Europe, enjoying the public transportation. Whereas in the US, obviously we do not have a great, well-connected public transportation system. Again, our train system is sad. So it's really not possible in that same way. And even if you're driving, again, you could be driving 10 hours and still be in the same state.
Yeah, I don't know exactly why we've all been conditioned to think that travel within North America like doesn't count, but we've been hoodwinked.
Some people might say, oh, well, you're still in the same country. That doesn't count. But truly, again, you don't want to discount how different many US states are from each other.
I feel like a lot of Europeans just don't realize how big the US is or how much of a melting pot it is either.
We're a country made of immigrants, plus of course Native American culture. So you're gonna have an extremely different time whether you're visiting New Orleans or you're going to Boston or you're going to Seattle. Me just again struggling to name name 3 towns. Can't do it. Leave me a comment down below. Name 3 towns. Anyway, all of that is to say that truly you can get really diverse, really wonderful experiences traveling throughout the United States. You can find radically different food culture, different languages spoken, different pockets of immigrant communities. This is where I almost want to say I'm proud to be an American. Not because of the country as a whole, but because there are many wonderful people here who make it actually a great place. I know, again, people don't want to hear any defense of American anything, but you know, there are some redeeming qualities and people. Okay, I think that's it. I know this video was a little bit disjointed, but again, this is my first time filming since having my baby. By the way, I have a baby now. That's a whole thing. It's been very hard to work. So far, I do not have childcare. So I've been a stay-at-home parent while my husband goes to work. I'm taking care of my baby, love her so much. She is everything. But then I'm also like, oh shit, how am I supposed to do work? How am I supposed to do my work? So I'm figuring that out right now. By the way, if you happen to be in the New York City or Long Island area, I might be hiring a research assistant or co-writer, and I could use someone in the area because, again, until I get childcare sorted out, it'd be helpful to have you in person. So if you do any sort of writing or video work, consider checking out this form. Send me your stuff, whether that's writing, video, anything creative. I really need the help right now. I have no time and no brain power, so thank you so much for all the well wishes during my little bit of time off, my very short maternity leave. And yeah, stay tuned for future internet analysis videos. I hope all the Europeans watching don't hate me. Again, I was not trying to generalize all of you. I love my Europeans. I love you all. All of you Europeans who come from one country, Europe. All right, that's it. Okay, thanks, bye.